to St. Andrew's Hospital. That's all it says.
No, that's one
Straight
thing.
deed. No restrictions, no nothing on it.
There's no restrictions on the.
That's why I think they're probably, knowing Dr. Phil, I think he probably had a side agreement. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine the Gregory family giving over that valuable piece of property without some agreement as to what its use will be. I don't know, though. I've never seen it.
And your comment was based on the fact that it might not be exempt anymore, is that what you were?
No, my comment is, it's a serious question, who owns it? And right now, as far as I know, it's owned by either Lincoln County Healthcare, or last week, Stacy said that they have a parent, which is Maine Healthcare. So either Maine Healthcare or Lincoln County Healthcare owns the hospital.
That's not true of the registry of deeds.
Well,
I don't believe that.
No.
as far as, they're certainly acting like it. And the proposal that Bruce has recommended would require producing a hospital. Well, how much will that cost? It would cost, if we started from scratch, we could buy it back from LCH for $30 million, for example. Well, that's obviously not going to happen. So the question, this discussion tomorrow really needs, in my opinion, to concern itself with the issue of who owns it. What are we talking about?
If you guys, once you guys look at the financial statements, it'll become evident who owns the property.
Fair enough.
Tom,
And we can talk
wouldn't
about it.
any kind of deed like that have to be registered for?
There'd have to be a deed from St. Andrew's Hospital.
You were talking about the side agreement. Wouldn't anything like that have to
No.
be registered to
No,
have any
not
validity?
necessarily, no.
No?
No, but if there were an agreement, which I don't know, we gotta research it too, I have no idea the answer to the question. I do know the answers to the question, which we answered last week. There hasn't been a transfer or anything added or anything like that on our property, at least not that we know of. And if there is a letter from any donor that says this asset is to be used for X, then that's how that asset is used. So if there is an agreement, we must have it somewhere, and it would be our obligation to use it for its intended purpose. So, and as I said, you'll see on the financial statements who owns what as far as property goes. So
Fair enough.
that'd be it.
If we could understand the roles that these different entities play, it would be helpful. There's something called St. Andrew's Hospital. They own the land that the cottages sit on over at St. Andrew's Village. They own the inn at St. Andrew's Village. There's another entity called St. Andrew's Village Association or something like that that owns the cottages. Then there's Lincoln County Healthcare. Are they a body that administers everybody else's property, or do they also own property? You know, if we could understand how all of these different entities function, it might clear up some of the mess. You know, is there an entity called St. Andrew's Hospital that stands alone?
That's why,
Because they are the owner of record of some property in town.
that's why our information request in Lincoln County Healthcare
Yeah.
has been the organizational documents, because we need to kind of see those and we need to see them in line so we can make assumptions based on who owns
Yeah,
what.
if we knew who the they were, is it St. Andrew's Hospital, is it, you know,
And from a
not to
municipal
beat your dead
perspective,
horse, but
it has a lot to do with tax exempt status too.
exactly.
Because only the hospital as an organization has the tax exempt status. So if the hospital doesn't own a piece of property, it's no longer tax exempt.
Unless it's owned by another tax-exempt institution.
But not necessarily automatic. It would still have to go through the process of being analyzed as a tax exempt property.
Well, as I understand it, and my understanding is very crude about all this, there was an agreement made between the Board of Trustees. St. Andrews once had a Board of Trustees, as far as I know. It still does, but it has no authority. At one point, it had a board of trustees that had authority. It acted as the owner, if you like, of the hospital. And it gave the hospital, it transferred responsibility and ownership, as far as I know, to Lincoln County Healthcare, another 501(c). And there were some covenants, according to the book I registered a couple of weeks ago, to the effect that the hospital would be kept where it is and doing what it's doing itself. And according to the editorial in the Register, it's already the case that that covenant is broken by this move. So,
Well, we're gonna help clear up a lot of that, I think,
All
tomorrow
right.
when we meet with the task force.
but I think I can't remember whether it was at one of these meetings I mentioned that I was once involved with a not-for-profit in Massachusetts. And in Massachusetts, at least, I meant to look it up in Maine, I haven't done it in Maine yet. But in Massachusetts, the Board of Trustees answers to the corporation. And the corporation is appointed by the Board of Trustees. So that says that if it's true, if the same thing applies in Maine, then that means that the Lincoln County Board of Trustees reports to its corporation, who's appointed by the Board of Trustees. And what was pointed out earlier is that the public meeting that was held and the two votes that were taken imply that that Board of Trustees is not acting in the interests of the people on the peninsula. And hence all this subsequent meetings and establishment of the task force, etc. And as has been pointed out, that task force is operating on the assumption that the move by the Board of Trustees of Lincoln County Healthcare is not to be executed. Something else has got to happen. In other words, either a Board of Trustees has to be set up for St. Andrews, independent of Lincoln County Health, or the county, the peninsula, has to assume ownership of the hospital, which it could get by agreement from Lincoln County Healthcare. For example, these are just thoughts off the top of my head.
I think Stacy had explained the trustee structure at the last. Basically, there's the St. Andrews Board of Trustees, correct? There's a Lincoln County Health Board of Trustees, and there's a Miles Board of Trustees, and all three of those boards are basically the same people.
Yes.
The real question is,
There's a fourth entity too, just so.
St. Healthcare.
Aware about that.
What's the fourth entity?
The fourth entity is the physician group called Lincoln County Medical Group. So there are 4 entities, 1 parent, and then 1 parent over the top of us, which is Maine Health. And we're happy tomorrow to go into discussion about how does that work, what does that mean?
And a lot of the direction that you're discussing are things that we proposed to Julian is that I just need to have more clarification on first, before I think we're even publicly ready to comment at all.
by the way, you can call anything a Board of Trustees, even if it's just a Board of Advisors. You can call it a Board of Trustees. The question, for example, St. Andrews supposedly has a Board of Trustees. And my impression had been that if it was a Board of Trustees, then they had certain responsibilities and authority. But the question I would ask tomorrow is what are the responsibilities and authority of the St. Andrews Board of Trustees? As far as I know, they have not